Hey tribe, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the social work helping process, so stay tuned. Okay, so let's dive into it. So first and foremost, what is the social work helping process? In short, the social work helping process is the process we use to help people on the micro, meso, and macro level. Know the social work helping process, know the social work helping process, and know the social work helping process. It's used on the micro, meso, and the macro level. Now, when we're doing things where we're working individually with clients or we're working with a community, so just a greater number of people, it still fundamentally follows this process right here. As it pertains to this exam, it's helpful in answering the first next type of questions because those ones follow the sequence of what should the social worker do first or what should the social worker do next. And then for those that saw my serial bowl method, when we're following the sequence of events, again, what should we do first? What should we do next? We want to look at the context of the question, and the social work helping process helps with answering the question correctly. And whenever you have the option to refer, that's either the correct answer or not the correct answer. I'll put a bit of a spin on it, right? Where we follow the social work helping process, and there are actually 7 steps that we'll cover in a second, or refer out, and we'll break that down. So what should I do if I have the option to refer? So right off the bat, ask yourself, does this situation require the social worker to refer the client out for help? If not, eliminate that answer choice. Because remember, when we look at A, B, C, and D, or A, B, and C, that either is or is not the correct answer, right? And if it is, well, it's a reason to refer to another professional, right? So that's the correct answer, or it's not, so we can automatically eliminate it. And with that being said, you now have a 33% chance of getting it correct instead of a 25% chance if it's 4 answer choices of A, B, C, and D, or you have a 50% chance of getting it correct instead of a 33% chance if there's 3 answer choices of A, B, and C. So either way, we're either going through the entire social work helping process, or again, if we have the option to refer, it's either the correct answer or it's not the correct answer. So now we ask the question, as a social worker, when do we refer? Great question. If the social worker does not have the required training/skill set to help the person, we refer. To avoid a conflict of interest or dual relationship, we refer. If in the social worker's professional judgment, the client has not made reasonable progress, we refer, and we'll cover that in a second. And if another professional's knowledge or expertise is needed to better help the social worker and or client, these are the reasons that we would refer out. Now let's put some examples behind it. So with a doctor, if the client has presenting symptoms that the social worker is unsure about, thyroid and depression are connected, but the exact relationship is not fully understood. Thyroid issues can mirror symptoms of depression, which include fatigue, low energy levels, difficulty concentrating, decreased memory, decreased motivation, irritability, mood swings, feelings of sadness or hopelessness, and changes in appetite or weight. So in this case, right, imagine we had a question on exam where the client is highlighting symptoms that they're experiencing, and the social worker is kind of unsure, where it's like, is this like a medical issue, or is this symptoms of depression? And the question will be alluding to that. And in that case, we want to make sure that we refer out to make sure those medical issues are assessed by a doctor, a professional, so that we can be sure in how we're treating this client. Because again, if it's medical issues, not necessarily depression or, whatever's going on, that will be able to give us a clear answer. And another example pertaining to a doctor would be if a physician needs to be involved in treatment, such as working with a client with anorexia nervosa. Now, keep in mind, if within the question itself, it mentioned that a physician is already involved within the client's treatment process and everything, good, already covered, right? But if we're meeting with the client and we find out that a physician is not involved in a treatment and they have anorexia nervosa where they need to be involved in treatment, and let's say the social worker, they do have the skill set, the capabilities to work with clients with eating disorders, we want to make sure that a physician is involved in their care. And check this one out right here. Lawyer. If the client has legal questions, concerns, and/or wants legal advice, right? We're not talking about like a court order subpoena type of situation that the social worker receives. We're talking about if the client themselves came in and said, "Hey, social worker, I got this legal notice in the mail." Like again, it went to them, not the social worker with court order subpoenas and stuff. And we're their social worker, so it's understandable. They'll say, "What should I do about it?" We will want to encourage them to seek legal counsel because again, we're not a lawyer. We can support them through the process by processing their thoughts and emotions pertaining to the situation, but we're not giving legal advice because we're not a lawyer. So we will want to encourage them to seek legal counsel for that. And this last bullet point, another social worker. Sometimes the change in social workers can be beneficial if the client has not made reasonable progress. We would discuss the possible referral with the client and go from there. So sometimes just a change in professional can be beneficial. And like it was stated here, we're not just immediately going to do it where, the client comes in for their scheduled session and we're like, oh, here, you've been referred out. And it's like, wait, what was, when did this happen? So we would definitely want to discuss it with the client. And if all parties agree, trying out a different social worker could be beneficial. But of course, we would absolutely want to discuss it with them first. Oh, and I want to throw this in there as well. When they say reasonable progress, there's no exact time frame on it where it's like, oh, it's been a week, it's been a month, it's been 2 months. It's in the social worker's professional judgment. And again, we would discuss it with the client. Okay, so now that we covered when do we refer, what are the steps of the social work helping process? Step number 1 is engagement. Step number 2 is assessment. Step number 3 is planning. Step number 4 is intervention. Step number 5 is evaluation. Step number 6 is termination. And step number 7 is follow-up. And notice how I put here, or refer for help. And we covered the reasons why we would refer, because it either is the answer or it is not the correct answer. In a memory technique, EAP, intervene, ETF, or refer for help. So EAP, like a EAP program, the programs that employers offer to their employees for like counseling services and just other things to help them. Intervene, because we're intervening, and then ETF, with ETFs like, stocks and all of that other stuff, or refer for help. So EAP, intervene, ETF, or we're referring for help. Okay, so now let's break down the engagement step. So technically, the engagement stage is when the social worker and the client have their first interaction. It can last anywhere from a couple of minutes or more, depending on where it's occurring. So if it's a consultation call or if you're meeting with the client to complete an intake, we're building rapport, establishing trust with the client, informing them of what to expect from treatment, policy, services, obtaining informed consent, etc., aka doing and discussing the things that's needed to be done and discussed before we truly begin treatment and throughout. So think about times where it would be beneficial to engage the client in the beginning, because literally we have to meet them. Hello, my name is, like, we literally have to meet with them. So whether it's a consultation call, you're meeting them for the first time where they're coming in for an intake, whatever your first interaction is when it starts, right? And when I say throughout, let's say it's a situation where it would make sense to engage with the client because they don't want to be in program, or we want to focus on building the therapeutic relationship because that would help the client in that particular moment. Pay attention to that because engaging with the client would make the most sense. In the assessment phase of the social work helping process, information about the client, which includes their strengths, weaknesses, resources, coping ability, support system, etc., and their situation is both gathered and assessed. By asking the client / exploring the impact the situation is having on the client's life. Based on this assessment, a plan will be devised to assist the client in overcoming their current situation. Keep in mind, some questions may show the social worker gathering information, but did the social worker assess it? If we didn't, that would be the next thing to do. So let's go back to that, right? The definition of assessment, the evaluation or estimation of the nature, quality, or ability of someone or something. Whether we're doing it on a micro level or on a macro level, we're working with an individual, family, community, right? Whatever amount of people, we're following the social work helping process. And when we do any form of an assessment, we're gathering information, but what does this information mean? Is it a good thing, not good thing? When is it occurring? Is it beneficial? How's it this issue negatively impacting the client, right? That's what the assessment is, gathering information and breaking it down. What is the nature, the quality or ability or someone or something like this information? So we want to make sure that we're doing that as we're reading through the questions. Step number 3, planning. Collaboratively develop the plan of action or treatment plan with the client. Step number 4, intervention. Intervention are the actions being taken both by the client and the social worker. The client's interventions are the actionable steps, objectives, being done to achieve their goals. And for the social worker's interventions are the actions being done to help the client achieve their goals. I want to be very, 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 very clear. Now I sound like a broken record. Very, 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 very. Interventions for the social worker is literally the actionable things the social worker is doing to help the client. If the social worker gives the client a list of resources, that's an intervention. If the social worker is providing therapy services and they're using the CBT modality with DBT coping skills, that's the intervention. If the social worker is encouraging the client to go see their primary care physician to see about medical issues, that's the intervention. Interventions for a social worker is any action being taken to help the client. Even if it's we're doing a process note, right? And for the intervention, the social worker complete the evaluation with the client. The social worker educated the client about this topic or that topic, healthy forms of coping. Those are all interventions. Now jumping into step number 5, which is evaluation. Evaluating how the client is progressing with their plan of action / treatment plan. This is an ongoing process. So for any of us that have worked with clients before where we have our treatment plan, right? Or if we're working with a group of people, right? It's our plan of action, how we're helping them. We're evaluating how is it going? Any adjustments need to be made? Did they achieve these goals? Can we take away these goals? Should we add these goals, right? So it's an ongoing process. Then when we look at termination, the client has met their treatment goals and services are no longer needed. We never want, and to be clear, as social workers, it doesn't mean that we're only working in a clinical realm, right? We can work in the macro realm, all these different areas, right? Providing services. But once the services are no longer needed because the client or the clients have met their treatment goals, whatever the goals are for that person, that community, right? They met their goals. We did the thing. We helped them achieve their goals. And that's why the side note right here, if a client has achieved their treatment goals and anxious or hesitant about discharging, the social worker should support the client by discussing their anxiety or hesitation with them and still proceed with discharge. It's unethical to provide services to clients when treatment is no longer needed because they achieved their goals. Again, this is very different if they haven't achieved their goals and stuff like that, but if they have, it's understandable where they can feel that anxiety, that hesitation, like, oh man, if I leave, if I stop working with this social worker, and what am I going to do when the shoe drops, right? Our role as a social worker, we want to meet with them, discuss it with them, remind them that they have achieved their goals, they have developed the healthy forms of coping and the ability to manage any life curveballs that gets thrown at them. So we don't want to just keep them in treatment providing services when it's really not needed because they met their treatment goals. And step number 7, which is the follow-up. Admittedly, we may not see this on the exam, but it is part of the social work helping process. This step includes reaching out to the former client to see how they're doing. So again, just like it sounds like a follow-up, whether we follow up in a month, 2 months to see if they're following their treatment plan, identifying early warning signs of increasing symptoms, stress, and whatever's on their treatment plan, just to see how they're doing. And now let's jump into a practice question to see how we will apply the social work helping process. So a social worker is meeting with the client who reports feeling stressed, anxious, and physically tired. During the session, the client reports being a caregiver for their parent. What should the social worker do next? A, recommend the client meet with their physician to complete a physical exam. B, assess the impact caring for their parent has had on the client. C, provide the client with a list of resources for support groups. Or D, refer the client to a caregiver support group for additional support. You know how we do? pause the video, reread through the question, reread through the answer choices, select your best answer, unpause the video, and then we'll jump into the explanation. Okay, if you picked B, you are correct. Why? So let's look at A. Recommend the client meet with their physician to complete a physical exam. This is incorrect. Being physically tired is not enough to warrant a physical examination. The client could be physically tired due to a medical issue. The client could be physically tired because they just got off of work. The client could be physically tired from caring for their parent. We don't know. Whatever the reason, assessing the information will reveal the source of the client's tiredness. So again, for those different reasons right there, and if we ever receive services from a social worker where it's like, oh, hey, how was your day? Oh, I'm feeling tired. Go to your PCP. And it's like, whoa, I just said I was just feeling tired. Like now I'm going to my PCP. Like, so again, and even if it is a possible medical issue and everything, doing the assessment will reveal that information. So that's why A, recommend the client meet with their physician to complete a physical exam. That's why this one would be incorrect. Now let's look at B, which is the correct answer. Assess the impact caring for their parent has had on the client. So this is the correct answer. Information was gathered, but was it assessed? We got some of the information, but was it broken down? What is the impact of the information provided by the client? Assessing the impact of the information presented by the client will reveal where their symptoms are coming from and any other issues needed to be addressed. Now let's look at C. This is incorrect. Why? So provide the client with a list of resources for support groups. We don't know if the source of the client's reported symptoms is coming from caring for their parent or something else. Suppose we pick this option and the client says, why are you giving me these? I don't need caregiver support. Caring for my parent is not an issue. My stress, anxiety, and tiredness are coming from my construction job and it's been taking a toll on me. Then we're kind of like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah. Oh, remember, the question is asking, what should the social worker do next? Assessing would reveal all this information because if the client did say, oh, like this is actually not a problem at all. I was just letting you know that I'm a caregiver for my parent. And then we're like, oh, so you actually don't need these. That's kind of like with anything, but imagine clients saying like, oh, I'm not anxious. Like I'm good with my anxiety control and I'm here for other reasons. And we're like, oh, take these anxiety resources and just in case or here. And it's like, it's not an issue for me. Like, why are you giving me these? Right. So we want to make sure that we assess to reveal how we should tackle the situation. And lastly, D is incorrect. Refer the client to a caregiver support group for additional support. This is incorrect. Why? So like we covered earlier, whenever you have the option to refer, that's either the correct answer or not the correct answer. Ask yourself, does this situation require the social worker to refer the client out for help? If not, eliminate that answer choice. Again, we don't know if the source of the client's reported symptoms is coming from caring for their parent or something else. The question is asking, what should we do next? And completing an assessment, which is the correct answer of B, assess the impact caring for their parent has had on the client. That is why that's the correct answer. Okay, tribe, that's it for today's video. Thank you for tuning in. Again, that was the social work helping process. Remember, EAP, intervene, ETF, or refer out for help. Definitely, we need to know this for the exam to greatly increase our chance of going in there, passing our exam, getting our license, and moving on with our social work journey. Like always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tell a social work friend because we don't want to be licensed by ourselves. All study group information will be downloaded in the description, so definitely check that out if you would like to attend. All right, tribe, I'll see you next video.